In August of 2014, Port Metro Vancouver granted a permit to Fraser Surrey Docks to ship up to 4 million metric tons of US thermal coal through BC communities, including White Rock and South Surrey. This project saw tremendous opposition, including warnings from health authorities, scholars, municipal leaders, and the public. What is your position on US thermal exports from Metro Vancouver, as well as the Fraser Surrey Docks facility? And how should the federal government respond to widespread public concerns about these exports?
Better alternatives to coal energy do exist, but libertarians stand for free market principles, and we will let supply and demand decide whether thermal coal should be exported. We will allow more time for the energy sector to transition to greener, more efficient alternatives such as solar power. However, to protect waterways, landowners, and the environment, we believe in property rights. We will enforce property rights so individuals will have full ownership of their land and the natural resources above and below it, and encourage a system where harm and property damage as a result of pollution can be dealt with through the judicial system. Thank you.
And Larry?
I want to say I'm very glad to see Bonnie here. This is the first debate that she has been invited to, and I think it's great to hear all different perspectives.
You're here.
I can't say that I'm against property rights, or you'll all think I'm a communist, and that wouldn't look well. But I believe human rights are more important, and I certainly think that we need to defend those in this case because thermal coal, I don't believe the companies have any right to threaten our health, our safety, and I just can't believe that our government is supporting them in doing that. So I've been an active opponent of shipping US thermal coal through Canada. I've written letters, posted a sign on my lawn, thanks to Paula, and I've provided some meager support to communities in coal. I was also one of a dozen or so individuals who, there were many more individuals than that, who signed on to launch the Eco-Justice federal court case against the Port of Vancouver. So I believe strongly in what the Communities in Coal is doing, and I think it's very, very important. It's an insane venture that must be stopped for the sake of 40 jobs, perhaps, outside of our area. It's such a serious threat to thousands of local jobs here in fisheries and tourism, to our quality of life in the short term and in the long term, to our health and the health of Mother Earth and all its inhabitants. So, and I just don't think it's worth it to allow Warren Buffett, who owns the BNSF, to make an extra few billion to add to his 70 billion net worth. The major cost for any damage will be borne by you and me. The cumulative impacts will put an additional strain on our healthcare system, and we will be responsible for the lion's share of any pollution cleanup. As well, in case of any medical emergency, it will risk the lives of all people living west of the tracks in Crescent Beach. And again, our federal government just has no right to endanger our livelihoods, our health, and perhaps our lives for very little tangible benefit. I could go on, but the Green Party National Transportation Policy actually has 2 paragraphs, and it mentions our opposition to U.S. thermal coal, so this isn't just my position. Our party has taken a stand against this as well.
Thank you. First of all, I should caution Larry, if someone who might find a terrorist under every bed might be a little cautious about communists too. Commander in between. U.S. thermal coal is shipped into Canada through South Surrey White Rock to Point Roberts and the Fraser Surrey Docks for shipment to China. It's basically a rhetorical question to ask, is this also a major contributor to global warming and climate change? I don't think there's any doubt about that. Burlington Northern's literature claims that more than 90% of the coal they ship comes from Powder River Basin in Wyoming and Montana, and the site that they claim that's the site of the world's largest deposit of low sulfur coal. My understanding is that what is being shipped to China through Canada is high sulfur coal, soft coal. That is a direct challenge to what the IPCC and the wider scientific community tell us about climate change and environmental impacts. Certainly it's a major contribution to airborne pollutants and feeds an economic engine based on coal-fired electricity that we are trying to phase out in Canada and even in the US. Part of the reason for the emphasis now is that a future soft coal export may be limited by regulations in the United States. I understand that this is an economic activity that U.S. port communities are not allowing, and while cleaner coal or more efficient processes may be in the future, it is not yet in evidence. I do think it is pretty clear that there is no intention of limiting it on the part of the Harper government or by business interests on either side of the border. The best solution may be to change the government. We need to make long-term credible choices as a society, and it deserves full debate, not just in the heat of an election, but that too. Scholars, municipal leaders, healthcare authorities, as voters, and everyone here in South Surrey White Rock, please take note and vote for the Progressive Canadian candidate.
I mean, what do you say about thermal coal that when you know that you are putting a product out to market that simply is going to create more pollution and do exactly the wrong thing, and thermal coal is. If we export it to China and put it through our system, then we are, I think, contributing to this type of pollution. We should not, absolutely not even think about it. One of the things that, with Surrey Fraser Docks, they've sort of been a law unto themselves, and they have made these decisions, I will say, with the support of the Surrey Board of Trade, although I will give credit to the South Surrey White Rock Board of Trade because they did not support this, and it was not unanimity in business. Because I think even our local residents understand that when you're dealing with dirty coal and the ability to absolutely pollute your air, that you have to at some point look at clean business. And one of the things in our platform is in growing clean jobs to grow our new economy. Part of the whole operation in the $125 billion infrastructure program over 10 years is to move from dirty fossil fuels and move into cleaner and using cleaner fuels and technology. Mm-hmm. If you go to Spain, you even go to China, you go to many countries down south and around the world, all of them at this point are using wind power. Marvin Hunt has a house that he's put thermal power underneath it. There are so many different ways to fire up and to use energy. There is no need to use coal. And quite frankly, we have a Roberts Bank, an established coal port. No need to convert Surrey Fraser Docks to handle this. And we must lobby against federal dollars to support this conversion. And that's where you come in, is to continue your job and continue lobbying. And I think any one of us up here, we agree. We don't want to see this happen, and unfortunately the one person that does isn't here to face the music.
Thank you, Judy.
Washington and Oregon have refused to have U.S. dirty thermal coal go through their ports for economic, health, and environmental reasons. As important, the U.S. doesn't want to count the greenhouse gases from the ultimate combustion of that coal as part of their contribution to climate change. Why should we have to count it as part of ours? Canada has a horrible reputation internationally for being a laggard in terms of climate change, thanks to the Harper government. This would be worse, to have this on top of everything else. It's just ridiculous, in my view. The NDP is committed to taking Canada into a new era internationally and restoring our reputation internationally on climate change and other environmental matters. And until a total ban on U.S. thermal coal through Canadian ports can be put into place, in the meantime, we need to make sure that projects like the Fraser Surrey Docks are subject to a proper environmental assessment based on solid science, and have to go through also a comprehensive, independent human health risk assessment. That should be a minimum. And let's not forget that Canada is a is a sovereign country, and we can say no to dirty thermal U.S. coal, and we have to. Thank you.
I want to point something out here. There is a sharp distinction to be made between Mr. Harper's party and the Progressive Conservative Party of Canada that the Progressive Canadian Party preceded us. The Progressive Conservative Party of Canada's environment critic up until 2003, when the party was taken over, John Herron, was a severe critic of the laggard way in which the Liberal Party was actually approaching the Kyoto Protocol. He wanted action, he wanted consultation with industry and with the provinces to see how we could effectively put the Kyoto principles into play, have it acted upon. Mr. Harper's party, then called the Canadian Alliance, was quite resistant to any concerns about climate change and producing measures that would address those concerns. I think it's important to make a distinction when we're talking about Canadian politics between the historic progressive conservative principles of nation building, national vision, and national unity, and the frankly libertarian and corporate interests that seems to drive Mr. Harper's party. It does not reflect environmental concerns, and I don't think it addresses the concerns of Canadians as a whole, as a nation. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
You know, when you're talking about should the federal government respond to widespread public concerns about these exports? Absolutely they should. But a government of Canada needs to have an agenda for operating clean jobs, taking action on climate change, investing in clean technologies, and that does not include bitumen coal. They have to create clean jobs and invest in them. And you know, you have to restore these environmental assessments. How many times have you seen scientists muzzled, people and experts told to shut up, or fired from their job because they're just doing their job and giving the government in charge their best advice? I believe that, you know, we have to make sure that we protect our climate and protect our country. And Canada has to go back to making that one of the priorities on our agenda. We will do that, and I think most people up here will work towards that. But you need to vote somebody in government that can handle that and will do it properly.
I'd just like to thank the other candidates for talking about the environment and climate change so much. As a Green Party candidate, really, seriously, I think it's wonderful, the difference between the 2011 election and this one. Most of the major parties have come around to recognizing its importance, and you can, of course, rely on the fact that the Green Party would take action, and the more Green Party MPs we can get into Parliament, the more action you will see. Thank you.
Okay, I just want to put in that we're not one issue party either. So.
No.